Libra enters 2026 not with the familiar hesitation of past years, but with a feeling that is hard to name. As if, after a long time standing between crossroads, you suddenly realize your legs are no longer trembling. Not because everything is clear, but because something quiet inside you has finally agreed. A silent inner consent. A deep readiness. Everything has ripened enough to change direction, even if you cannot yet put that direction into words. If you look back to the end of 2024, you may notice that the biggest changes did not come from action, but from subtle shifts within. Long nights lying still, thinking of nothing in particular, yet sensing that something inside was being loosened. Moments when you no longer reacted the way you used to, no longer trying to please everyone, no longer carrying the responsibility of keeping everything balanced at any cost. The year 2025 passed like a quiet internal recalibration. On the outside, you may have looked the same, but on the inside, the axis shifted slightly. And sometimes, a shift of just a few degrees is enough to change the direction of an entire life. In previous years, Libra often lived in a state of observation. You felt the world clearly. You felt people deeply, yet you placed yourself in the middle, like a keeper of rhythm, a keeper of harmony, a keeper of order for everyone else. But as 2026 arrives, a new feeling emerges. You no longer want to stand there simply to balance everything around you. You begin to ask a different question. Where is my true place? Not in the eyes of others, but in my own life. The question is not loud. It arrives as softly as a breath. Yet it is strong enough to make it impossible to keep living the same way. This is not a surface-level change, not a new plan, not a sudden career turn. This is a shift at a much deeper level, a place where you reconsider your role in the world. You begin to understand that real balance does not come from carrying every side, but from standing in the right place. When you stand in the wrong place, no matter how hard you try, the scale still tilts. But when you stand in the right place, everything around you naturally finds its order again. The year 2026 opens like a quiet invitation. No pressure, no loud calling, just a clear inner knowing that you no longer need to make yourself smaller. It is time to allow yourself to be fully present, with your voice, with your choices, with the desires you once set aside out of fear of disturbing others. Libra begins to realize that living in alignment with yourself does not throw the world off balance. On the contrary, it gives the world a new point of support. You may not see results right away. The road ahead may still feel unclear, but what matters is this. You no longer feel like you are drifting. You stand there, more grounded, listening more deeply, trusting your own rhythm. In that quiet space, a gentle light begins to spread. Not bright, not showy, but warm enough to soften the parts of you that have been tired for a long time. And when Libra allows yourself to move forward from that place, from that newly established inner balance, you begin to notice something else. Some doors do not need to be knocked on. They open on their own when you are ready to step forward. No rush, no proving. Just keep listening, keep being present. Because when you are standing in the right place, the journey ahead is no longer a search. It becomes a response. And that response arrives in a very unusual way. Not loud, not shaped like a dramatic push. It comes as small signals, one after another, gentle but persistent, enough that you can no longer ignore them. In the final days of January, when the new year has just begun to settle after familiar busyness, a quiet sensation starts to spread inside Libra, as if the space around you suddenly feels wider, and within that widening space, someone places an invisible hand on your shoulder, very light, yet steady enough to let you know you no longer have to hold your balance alone. It may come through a conversation that seems ordinary at first, yet the other person's words touch something you have kept hidden for a long time. It may be an invitation, an idea, or an opportunity that appears without warning, arriving at the exact moment you thought you needed more time. These moments do not arrive separately. They arrive almost at once, overlapping, layering upon each other, until you begin to sense a gentle pattern, quietly unfolding. Not to force you to change direction, but to show you that this path has already been waiting for you to step onto it. During this time, Libra feels a subtle inner shift very clearly. Not excitement, but reassurance. A calm knowing that you are being supported, even though you cannot yet see the shape of where this is leading. You begin to step away from the habit of standing in the middle. You stop trying to keep every side comfortable by sacrificing yourself. Instead, you listen more carefully to the smallest movements inside you, signals that were once ignored because you were too busy considering everyone else. There are mornings when you wake up with the sense that you are moving at the right rhythm, not faster, not slower, just right. And within that sense of just right, you realize something important. You do not need to see the entire road ahead in order to keep walking. You only need to place your foot on the next step. The ground will appear when you do. The scale, the one you once tried to hold steady with every ounce of effort, begins to adjust itself when you stop pulling it toward familiar safety. Those weeks feel like a softly lit corridor, not bright enough to overwhelm you, but bright enough to reveal doors you once hesitated to touch. Libra begins to answer the call from within, rather than waiting for permission from the outside world. And strangely enough, when you step away from the neutral ground, the world does not collapse. Instead, everything seems to return to its natural order. Within this gentle movement, you may notice your heart softening, no longer guarded, no longer trying to prove that you are fair, proper, or worthy. You simply exist, fully, as you are. And that presence creates a quiet pull, drawing the right people, the right opportunities, the right invitations closer to you. Libra slowly understands that you were never as alone as you once believed. It was only that you were standing in a place that made it difficult for life to reach you. When you shift, even slightly, the current begins to change direction. No rushing, no immediate, life-altering decisions required. Just keep walking, carrying the new trust that has just been awakened inside you. Because once you allow yourself to step out of the middle ground, life begins to respond in the gentlest of ways, leading you farther, deeper, and closer to who you truly are. And then there comes a moment that is hard to define, not a specific date on the calendar, not an event big enough for others to notice. But for Libra, it is the moment you begin to feel lighter. Not because every burden has disappeared, but because you are no longer gripping them with the same familiar fear. Late April carries a different kind of air. Not rushed, not demanding. Like morning light slipping through the curtains. Just enough to help you open your eyes and realize you have been asleep for far too long inside an older version of yourself. The desires you once carefully set aside begin to stir again. Not loudly, not insistently, just honest questions returning. What do I enjoy? How do I truly want to live? If I no longer had to please everyone, what would I choose for myself? These questions no longer unsettle you the way they once did. They arrive with a strange warmth, as if, at last, you are allowing yourself to be curious about your own life, instead of always adjusting yourself for someone else's. Libra begins to realize that joy is not a luxury that requires permission. It is a basic right of being alive. When you reconnect with that genuine joy, even in the smallest ways, a sense of aliveness spreads through every cell. An idea you once dismissed as unrealistic suddenly feels worth trying. A way of expressing yourself that you once held back out of fear of being different now feels strangely natural. You stop asking whether you will be accepted. You begin asking whether you are being honest with yourself. Within that honesty, there is a very gentle kind of strength. It does not push you into confrontation, but it does stop you from bowing to patterns that no longer fit. Libra no longer lives to keep everything around you calm by sacrificing yourself. You understand that true balance only appears when each person is allowed to stand in their own nature. And when you allow yourself to live that way, you quietly offer others a beautiful permission to be themselves as well. In the days that follow, life begins to open in subtle ways, not through grand doors swinging wide open, but through small paths you never noticed before, encounters that feel easy instead of tense, work, invitations, and spaces that let you breathe more deeply, smile more softly, and explain yourself less. You realize that when you stop forcing yourself to fit everything, everything begins to move toward you with a more harmonious rhythm. There are moments when you pause in the middle of the day just to feel your own presence. Nothing to achieve, nothing to prove, just standing there with a sense of peace that feels new. In that peace, you understand that creativity is not only about making something new for the world, it is also about having the courage to create a life that truly reflects who you are inside. That is the bravest act, and also the most healing one. Libra begins to walk forward with a different light in your eyes. No longer the light of hesitation, but the light of someone who has chosen to trust their own rhythm. You do not know everything that is coming, but you know you will meet it with a more open heart. And as you continue walking from that place, with joy as your compass, doors you never knew existed begin to appear naturally, not to test you, but to welcome you. And in that moment, Libra understands something clearly. Life does not need you to strain yourself to keep it balanced. It only needs you to be fully present and to allow your light to move outward in your own way. And as that inner light begins to spread in its own quiet way, another movement starts to unfold slowly but clearly within Libra's material world. It does not arrive with loud noise. It does not look like instant compensation. It feels more like a river that has quietly changed direction after flowing against itself for many years. In the 3 years before this, you entered a season that demanded endurance. Responsibility came before joy. Obligation came before reward. You carried more than was acknowledged. You held together more than you were meant to carry. And there were moments when even you wondered whether that patience had been placed in the wrong place. Libra once believed that if you were fair enough, kind enough, patient enough, everything would eventually balance itself. But those 3 years taught you a deeper truth. Value does not grow from silent sacrifice alone. Value needs to be placed in the right space, the right role, the right position. You learn to look honestly at the relationship between effort and recognition, between giving and receiving. Not to become calculating, but to stop hurting yourself without realizing it. As early 2026 arrives, that pressure begins to retreat like a thin layer of fog, slowly dissolving in sunlight. You may not be able to name the change right away, but you feel it in ordinary, everyday moments. Your income begins to steady. Financial opportunities appear unexpectedly, not because you ask for them, but because you are finally ready to receive. It may be an offer you once thought was beyond your reach. It may be a new source of income, emerging from something you have quietly nurtured for a long time. More important than the numbers is the feeling of being acknowledged, not through loud praise, but through the quiet fairness of life itself. You look back at what you have built and realize it never disappeared. It was simply waiting for the right moment to return to you in a form that truly matches its value. Libra begins to understand that money, at its deepest level, is not a reward for endurance. It is a reflection of whether you are standing in the right place. When you stand in the wrong place, money comes and goes, leaving a sense of emptiness behind. When you stand in the right place, money becomes a supportive flow without costing you your sense of self. And in this stage of life, Libra no longer looks at finances through the lens of anxiety. You see it as a relationship that requires mutual respect. You offer real value, and you allow yourself to receive in return without guilt. There is a clear maturity now in how you relate to money. You no longer feel the need to prove your worth by exhausting yourself. You no longer treat fair compensation as something you must ask permission for. You understand that self-respect does not come from refusing to receive, but from knowing exactly where your value stands. And when that clarity is in place, the material flow becomes more coherent, less tense, less punishing. In rare moments of stillness, you may notice a new sense of safety taking shape inside you. Not because you have everything, but because you are no longer afraid of not having. You know you are moving in the right direction, and abundance will arrive in its own rhythm. From this new place of standing, Libra no longer needs to cling or stay on guard. You continue forward with a quiet trust that what truly belongs to you will find its way to you when you stop placing yourself outside your own worth. And within that trust, a very solid foundation is forming, one that prepares you for steps that go farther, wider, and more sustainable on the journey ahead. And as that inner foundation gradually settles, a natural shift begins to appear in the way Libra moves through the world, not as a big announcement, not as a dramatic turn, but as a subtle change in how you show up each day. From early to mid-2026, you start to realize that the old rhythm of life no longer fits. The ways of working that once made you feel safe now feel tight. The roles you once carried out of responsibility begin to reveal their exhaustion. And instead of forcing yourself to continue, Libra listens to that feeling with a new kind of honesty. You are not doing more than before. You are doing things differently. You may begin to reorganize your time, setting clearer boundaries between work and personal life. You may allow yourself to rest without guilt. You may choose to learn something new without needing proof that it will produce immediate results. From the outside, these changes may seem small, but inside, they feel like rebuilding the structure of an old building, so it can stand steady in a new season of life. Libra gradually understands that your career is not only a place where you give, it is also a space that reflects who you are becoming. When you shrink yourself to fit a mold, the world offers you only limited opportunities. When you stop doing that, different doors begin to open, not because you suddenly became more capable, but because you stopped denying your real value. You enter professional relationships with a different posture now. No begging, no guarding. Just the grounded presence of someone who knows what they have to offer. During this period, Libra may feel invited into new roles, or called to look at old roles through an entirely different lens. Some offers make you pause, not out of fear, but because you are considering whether they truly reflect who you are now. And that moment of consideration reveals how far you have come. You no longer choose out of habit. You choose from a deep alignment between your inner world and your outer life. Your lifestyle begins to shift naturally as well. You realize that effectiveness does not come from forcing yourself to move faster, but from placing yourself into the right rhythm. When your rhythm adjusts, your energy stabilizes. You focus more clearly. You see more clearly. And from that clarity, decisions about learning, personal growth, and long-term direction begin to take shape without strain. Something beautiful happens when Libra steps outside old patterns. The world does not close in, as old fears once whispered. It opens. New people appear. New environments welcome you. New opportunities arrive with a strangely fitting feeling. There is no need to become someone else. No need to wear another mask. You only need to be the more mature version of who you already are. In rare, quiet moments, you may notice a new kind of trust growing slowly but firmly. A trust that you do not need to compete to earn your place. The place meant for you already exists. It has simply been waiting for you to respect yourself enough to step into it. When Libra stands in that place, work is no longer a battle. Learning is no longer pressure. Social roles are no longer costumes you must squeeze into. Everything begins to feel like a natural extension of the life you are living. And from this new point of standing, you no longer see the future as something to conquer. You see it as a space slowly opening, where you are invited to contribute through your own identity. No rushing, no comparing, just steady steps forward, carrying a rare clarity you spent many years finding again. And once you have learned how to stand firmly in your own world, a very different movement begins to touch the deepest part of your heart. From late April onward, love no longer carries the familiar colors of previous years. It no longer arrives as a need to fill an emptiness. It is no longer a place where you must try to be pleasing or perfectly fitting. Libra enters new connections with a gentle kind of awareness. You do not rush to open the door, but you no longer keep it locked tight either. You allow things to come and to pass through you, listening to what feels true instead of old expectations. There is a quiet question that begins to appear each time a connection starts to form. It is not sharp. It is not judgmental. It is simply honest. Does this relationship allow me to breathe more deeply? Can I be myself when I am with this person? That question becomes your new compass. No long explanations required, no complicated reasons needed, only the feeling of ease or tension, expansion or contraction within your heart. Libra is no longer searching for someone to fill a missing space. You have learned how to sit calmly with yourself, how to create safety from within. And because of that, love is no longer your only place of support. It becomes companionship. Two people standing side by side, not leaning on one another, but walking in the same direction. You are no longer afraid of being alone, and that freedom allows you to choose more carefully, yet more openly. In the right connections, you feel yourself open naturally. No need to explain too much. No need to maintain an image. There are conversations that stretch into silence without ever feeling heavy. There are moments when you look at the other person and realize you do not need to adjust yourself in order to be loved. Love no longer throws you off balance. It supports the balance you worked so hard to build. And with relationships that no longer fit, Libra no longer tries to hold on. There are no long arguments to prove who is right or wrong. No promises made to quiet the fear of loss. You let go with a rare sense of calm, not because you are cold, but because you respect both sides. You understand that staying in a half-lived relationship is the fastest way to lose yourself, and you have come too far to return to that place. A quiet maturity is taking shape in the way Libra loves now. You no longer place love on a scale to measure sacrifice. You place it beside your life and see whether it moves in harmony. If it does, you walk together. If it does not, you step back gently, without resentment. Love becomes a space where you can fully exist, not a stage where you must prove your worth. In moments of stillness, you may feel your heart softening, yet becoming clearer. You know what you need, and you know what you are no longer willing to trade away. From that place, Libra enters love with a new kind of trust. Not the belief that everything will be perfect, but the certainty that no matter what happens, you will not abandon yourself. And that trust creates a very special space. A space where the truest connections can enter gently, without force, and with enough depth to walk with you along the path that has already begun to open. And when your heart becomes calm enough to recognize what true companionship really is, life begins to guide Libra toward very specific meetings. From around July onward, relationships move into a completely different rhythm. No longer brief connections that appear only to teach a lesson and then leave, but encounters that slow time down. You may meet someone and feel something familiar from the very first moment, even before logic can explain it. Not an intense spark, but a quiet certainty, as if two currents have finally found their point of convergence. The relationships that appear during this period do not arrive to test you in the old way. They arrive to ask a simple yet profound question. Are you willing to walk together? Not in moments of excitement, but in the most ordinary days of life. Libra begins to clearly see the difference between connections that demand effort and those that allow you to rest within yourself. And you no longer confuse the two. It may be a romantic connection that gradually grows more serious without grand promises, just steady presence. It may be a partner, a collaborator, or a bond that reminds you that you no longer have to carry everything alone. Major decisions begin to appear, not as pressure, but as an invitation to stay or to move forward, to commit or to let go, to walk together or separately. And what stands out most is that you are no longer afraid of these choices. Libra realizes that destiny is not something that falls from the sky, but a series of choices made when you are clear within yourself. Meetings during this time may arrive very quickly, sometimes in situations you never prepared for. But when you look back, you see they were never random. They appeared at the moment you stopped standing in the middle, stopped waiting for approval from every direction, and began standing firmly in your own position. In the most ordinary moments, you may notice this change most clearly. A long conversation that requires very few explanations. A single look that tells you do not need to justify who you are. A sense of ease when you imagine a future that includes this person, not because of grand promises, but because you trust how the two of you face small, everyday things together. That trust does not come from words. It comes from the feeling of standing on the same side. Libra once believed that balance was something you had to create alone, hold alone, adjust alone for everyone around you. But during this period, you begin to understand a very different truth. The scale only becomes stable when someone stands with you to hold it, not to lean on, but to share the weight of life. When you no longer have to strain to keep balance by yourself, you finally have space to walk farther. The big decisions of this time no longer feel like sacrifice. They feel like choice. Choosing to stay because you want to, not because you are afraid. Choosing commitment because it fits, not because it is familiar. And in each choice, Libra feels the depth of their own maturity. You are no longer searching for perfection. You are searching for deep alignment, where both of you look in the same direction, even if the road ahead is still unknown. When you allow yourself to enter relationships like this, life becomes lighter in a very natural way. You no longer have to divide yourself to fit every side. You stand whole, and the right person stands beside you without asking you to change anything. In that moment, Libra understands something clearly. The balance you have been seeking was never about keeping everything calm. It was about finding someone who can walk with you through the movements of life with sincerity and with steady presence. And then, as the year slowly moves into its final months, a very different feeling settles within Libra. No longer waiting, no longer anxious about what has not yet arrived. It is the feeling of standing firmly on the ground, steady, as if after a long journey, you have finally found your own breath. Life does not suddenly become perfect, but it becomes clear, and that clarity brings a kind of peace you have never truly touched before. Libra is no longer suspended between choices. You look back at the road you have traveled and realize you are no longer standing in the middle. You have chosen, not in a moment of impulse, but through deep listening. Your inner world becomes more stable, not because everything outside is calm, but because the conflict inside you has quieted. Questions that once kept you awake at night no longer need answers. They dissolve when you live in alignment with what you have chosen. There is a gentle clarity now in how you look toward the future. You do not need a perfect plan. You do not need to know every step ahead. You simply know this direction is yours, and that is enough. The choices you make, whether big or small, no longer carry the fear of having to explain yourself to anyone. You do not need to prove you are right. You do not need validation to feel at ease. The agreement has already happened in the place that matters most. In the final days of the year, you may notice that you smile more when you are alone. Not the smile of effort, but the smile of someone who has accepted themselves. You feel at peace with your current rhythm of life, even if it does not resemble what you once thought you needed. You understand now that fullness is not about having everything, but about no longer feeling empty inside. And from that place, everything outside begins to feel lighter. Libra also realizes you no longer need to play the role of balancing the entire world. You allow yourself to be part of life, instead of standing outside it as an observer. When you stop straining to keep balance, balance appears naturally. The relationships that remain carry steadiness. What leaves does not leave regret, only deeper understanding of who you are. There are very quiet moments when you look back on the year and see how each piece has found its place. The things that once made you doubt yourself have become the foundation for a quiet confidence. The fears that once held you back are now only memories, reminding you how much you have grown. You no longer turn around to check whether you did the right thing. You know. And within that stillness, a very gentle confirmation spreads. It does not come through words. It does not need form. It feels like standing in a familiar space, knowing you belong here. No one needs to say it aloud. You understand the message more clearly than ever. You are standing in the right place. And when you stand in the right place, nothing else needs to be forced into balance. Everything finds its own order. Libra closes out 2026, not with excitement, but with steadiness. Not with grand promises, but with a quiet trust. A trust that you no longer need to run. You only need to keep walking in your own rhythm. And from here, the road ahead is no longer something to search for. It opens one step at a time, responding to your full presence, quietly, fairly, and sustainably, just like the true nature of the scale you carry within.